Why, hello there, fans of Canadian football. This is the Canadian Football Countdown. It's episode 323 of the Canadian Football Countdown. We are a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. We're back again. Been a couple weeks once again. Schedules keep shifting here and there between all of us. But Adam, we're here tonight as long as the wind stays away and the internet holds up.
Yeah, pretty much. Because right now I think it's a dust storm in Saskatchewan, and when Saskatchewan sucks, Winnipeg gets the consequences of that. So, there's that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever looked at my weather app before today and seen a dust storm warning in Winnipeg in there. I went outside for a little bit before today. It kind of looked like the apocalypse. So what do you do when the apocalypse is coming? You preview the East Division for 2026 of the CFL season, which is what we're here to do today. Hopefully
I swear we're not talking, when we say apocalypse, we're not talking the Toronto Argonauts this year, are we?
Maybe a little bit. We'll dive into that later, but hopefully not an apocalyptic season for any of these teams here, and hopefully no apocalypse in general. Of course, they'll probably play this back when that inevitably happens one day, but oh well. We're here to talk about the East Division, the CFL. We're going to preview the major storylines for the four Eastern teams. We'll talk a little bit about maybe some fantasy news and notes related to them, because CFL fantasy season is going to be spinning up one of these days. Doesn't the preseason start in like this weekend or in the next couple of days or something like that in the CFL?
Well, I know they have the game on Monday. They have the Riders and Stampeders in Calgary, but I haven't looked at the schedule a whole lot yet to really tell you. Might be a game this Saturday. I don't know. Is there?
I think maybe Monday. Monday might be the kickoff of the preseason. That sounds about right. That's something we can quickly fact check here as well. But the preseason is starting, and CFL Fantasy is still not unlocked. They've done all of this posting over social media, articles on their site hyping up CFL Fantasy, but you still cannot get in there to create your leagues, which means we have people asking what's happening with our fantasy leagues this year, and your guess is as good as mine because we're still waiting to figure that all out. But nonetheless, we'll talk a little bit about fantasy here as we talk about these four Eastern teams, and then we've also got some betting props to talk about for each of them as well. The Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. You can learn more at GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. And as always, we want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Otokree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. And if you're looking to chat with us in between episodes, talk CFL fantasy, talk CFL betting picks, talk CFL news in general, maybe even discuss the preseason games if you're able to find a way to watch them this weekend, because most of them aren't on TSN, but I believe CFL Plus is streaming them. We do have the Canadian Football Countdown Discord community. The link is in the episode description. It's free to join. We would love to see people that are not just spam bots joining, because that seems to be what we're getting a lot of lately. So hopefully less of that and more of people wanting to talk about the CFL. We've got a great community of fine folks over there, and I think they're excited for the season as well. So come on over and join us. It's free to join, and let's talk some CFL, and let's start doing that right now, Adam. It's do we want to dive right into our division preview here? I know there's been some new news around the CFL this week, but I think we got our hands full with the preview here. I know there's new rule changes that came out yet again that, the fan base is digesting well.
Well, yeah, I guess really we should bring up the one rule change that I can remember reading about. Again, my apologies for not going and following a whole lot of CFL this week, because we finally got to seed out in this area, and that's kind of, something that we usually do 2 weeks before already, so we're kind of behind. But anyways, the one thing I did read here this week, though, is there will be no more such thing as a tie game in the CFL. So,
thank goodness.
Yeah, to be honest, it's kind of a well-deserved thing. I thought, why not just play an extra, like if you can't get a score after the 35-yard games, why don't you just keep doing that? No, now it's going to just be 2-point convert chances. I think it is after the second 35-yard game. Yeah. So if there is, then they go just convert. If you miss the convert, well, the next team gets to try. If they get it, well, it's over. So kind of like a shootout in the NHL. And I mean, everybody loves shootouts, right? Right? Anybody? No? Okay. I don't know. I don't like this one just myself, just because, again, I like the 35-yard line. Give some series, give some downs, get some motion. Just keep doing that. What does it hurt? It will be done in the playoffs that way still. It will just be continual 35-yard line, go back and start again. And if you don't get it, then the next team has a chance. That adds way more strategy to the game and adds some more fun, I think, instead of a 2-point convert try. I don't know. But Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I was gonna wear like a suit and tie to the podcast tonight, and then I realized there's no more ties allowed for the CFL, so I came in my regular attire. There's 0% chance I was actually going to wear a suit and tie tonight to begin with. That's just not my vibe. I'm happy to see the ties gone. I kind of like this a little bit of a change for the CFL here. What do you think? Like, what's the longest overtime we're going to see this season? Like, so if you still have the 2 series back and forth and then you're trading 2-point tries, like, do we get longer than like 1 series of back and forth 2-point tries in the few games that might go to overtime?
I think we'll get 2. Maybe we might get 2 series, I think, right? So both of them miss, both of them miss, both of them miss. Or both of them miss twice, I guess, maybe. And then finally,
let's make it more interesting, like the NHL shootouts, where you have to rotate through your players in some way. The longer the overtime goes, like, can't play the quarterback, can't have him involved in the next series in somewhere. Okay, you got to run it. That running back can't play now. Eventually, like, we got the punters throwing passes to the end zone here to try to score the 2-point convert.
I would pay to see that, to be honest. That'd be pretty sweet. But yeah, no, I don't know. I don't like the idea of just this whole, one shot, one opportunity, and then otherwise you don't get nothing else. I like having that you get the chance. Okay, maybe I'll kick a field goal here, at least make those guys go and get something. Or do you go for the touchdown because, they might just get the ball in the next chance? I like that much better than, one throw. Nope, doesn't go in. Okay, well, those guys over there, they might get it. That's it. It's over. But I get what they're doing. They don't want an overtime, or they don't want a tie game, which I get that. It's a pain in the butt having each team get a point, and then hopefully in the playoffs become more chaotic. And I know what they're doing it for, but I don't know. I don't like the format. It's the big thing. So
I have more creative ideas if you want to hear them. This shootout is kind of fun, but like, remember the good old Wendy's kick for $1 million? Like, can every team designate somebody who is not a member of their actual football roster to be the overtime deciding kicker that has to come in and outduel this other member? It's like the E-bug in the NHL, the emergency backup goalie that they designate to come in case everybody else is injured and can't play, right? Like, it's so fun when those moments happen.
I would pay to see the E-bug. The emergency backup kicker. And then he gets a job afterwards because he's better than the guy that they actually have. So, that could be a possibility this year with some teams. You never know. But, hey, you know what? Honestly, I would love to see something like that. That'd be fun. You go and sit in the crowd, and then all of a sudden, hey, my name got called. I've got to go and try to kick a field goal to try to win the game for the Rough Riders, I guess.
I think it's a flawless idea. I'm disappointed. CFL, you have my number. You don't actually, and but find a way to reach me. The other rule change that it was, I think, the talk of many people coming out of this week was that related to the play clock. So we know that they're moving towards that 35-second play clock, but it sounds like a 20-second clock is still in play in the final 3 minutes of each half. As it was previously, but they've added a new little wrinkle in there where if is it 40 seconds left on the clock at least, or at most?
So if the offense has the ball, it's first down and it's 40 seconds or less left on the clock, they can kneel once and the game's over, or the half is over. Essentially is what it becomes. So if let's say there's 25 seconds left of the clock, Brady Oliveira ran the ball down Toronto's throat and got a first down, and there's 25 seconds left. Zach Kolarski, and Toronto doesn't have any timeouts left. They can literally just knee the ball and once, and it's over. And you know what? It makes sense. I mean, get the game over. Don't get anything going on where you're going to have people starting to go and have a little bit of a brouhaha or have a fight or something on the field because some defender pushed an offensive lineman. Old lineman got upset, and then he throws a punch, and then we got trouble. So you know what? Makes sense. I see what they're doing. Take a knee. Run the clock off. It's done. The game's over anyways, right? I mean, essentially with 25 seconds left and a first down, you're not going to get another snap after that. So why not? Like I said, that one there I don't have a problem with. So
I feel so nonchalant about it and like irrelevant about it because on one hand, I'm like, thanks for cutting out this useless 40 seconds. And on the other hand, I'm like, how productive am I going to be with that 40 seconds that I get back from them doing this? Probably not a whole ton, right? So I feel like it doesn't make a huge difference in my life one way or another on this. It will be a little bit weird to be like, oh, I guess the game's over now. I hate it more in the NFL when it's like you can really start kneeling down in the last 2 minutes because that feels more significant and like a big chunk there. But like this is just a formality based on at this point in time where the game is going to be over either way.
No, exactly. And the other thing also is if you really want to make it exciting, I guess what you could do is with that 40 seconds that they give you back, you can just go and cake it off of whatever time they go for doing automatic reviews on absolutely everything again. Because guess what? Third down now, turnovers on downs are automatically reviewed by the command center. And you can't tell me that's not going to take an extra, 40 seconds.
That's going to take a while. I kind of like that though. Like that was one that always like to me didn't make sense that wasn't reviewable by default.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like a 3rd and 1 QB sneak and everybody's in a pile. Like why are we not more often doing a quick review to make sure that is correct? But at the same time, I also like don't love the heavily over review and second guess. I do believe that part of the nature of the sport of football is that sometimes refs will make mistakes because the game is flying a mile a minute and we have to accept that those mistakes are part of the game and they'll even out one way or another over the span of the game. So I'm really hoping that doesn't slow it down, but I know they do have the directive from the CFL to make sure that the command center is moving games along and not slowing them down. So hopefully we see some positivity there because I know that was a talking point for a lot of people this past season. Let's get into our division previews here, and let's start off by let's talk about the Montreal Alouettes because they were the East representative in the Grey Cup this past season. I'm just pulling up last year's standings. I should have done that ahead of time to prepare. They were the second place team in the East last year, finishing 10-8. The Ticats actually finished ahead of them, but the Alouettes pulled through and went on to represent them at the East in the Grey Cup against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They've had a whole offseason in between. Your first initial overall thoughts on the Montreal Alouettes coming into 2026?
I think it's going to be essentially one thing and one thing alone. I think everybody's going to be looking at, can Davis Alexander do exactly what he just did pretty much all last season? I think that's what the biggest question is going to be. If he can do that and play at that high level and not take an injury, which is big for the Montreal Alouettes. Yes, they're trying to find that next backup quarterback, at least to have somebody behind Alexander. But hey, if they can keep Davis Alexander healthy, this team pretty much I can't see being a big I can't really, I'll be honest, I can't see a real legitimate threat in the East for the Montreal Alouettes. They're a good team. I mean, I like what they've done in a lot of places. Davis Alexander's in there. Yes, Darnell Sankey is gone in the linebacking core, which is a big piece from last year. But
Marc-Antoine Dequoy also retiring is a notable one on the defensive side.
Yeah, no, true. But you know what? They just brought in Sankey was there, but that they had a fourth round draft pick in 2024 that they brought in now as a linebacker, and they liked what they seen, I believe, in him. I got to remember the name though off the top of my head. It would add two names. Canton Arku came in, and I think he pretty much took Darnell Sankey's job. To be honest
And
with you,
Micah Awe is there now too, and he's been a
Mike
tackle
always
machine
there
the
for
last couple of
reinforcement.
years.
I mean, you still got Beverett in there as a good defense.
Yep.
So that defense is quite good. I still think that's still one thing that leads Montreal very well. Like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see what exactly all goes down. Like I said, I think they added another piece also to for Decoy. I think it was Sutherland. I think they added into there, if I'm not mistaken, or he was there last year. There was a Sutherland for a defensive end. He looked decent, I thought. If I think of the great guy, yes.
I do not see a Sutherland on the current Montreal Alouettes roster. Are you talking about
2023
Wesley
draft pick.
Sutton at defensive back?
How about free safety Jonathan Sutherland is who I'm thinking of.
I do not see him on the Montreal Alouettes roster.
Really? Okay. I'll have to maybe recheck this. I know he played in the NFL for a while, and he was not being picked up. And finally, he got picked up just at the end there by Montreal. But maybe I'm wrong. But yeah,
he was signed on January 23rd. He was signed by the Montreal Alouettes. I'm not sure why he's not on the roster currently.
Interesting. Okay. Well, if he comes, he's a big piece because he's been trying to get a job in the NFL for a while, and I think for 3 years essentially. And finally, like I said, I thought I seen some big signing that they were bragging about in Montreal, and that's, I'm sure, the guy I was thinking of.
He is apparently making waves at training camp. So, according to this article from dose.ca, your daily dose of sports. I've never heard of the website before, so I can't tell you for sure, but
I don't know. Maybe this is a Genius Sports kind of thing again with the CFL roster page. What do you do? Some things never change. But you know what? Honestly, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Montreal does here. I mean, the big thing, like I said, though, I think for them is still Alexander. I think if he can get anywhere, I think that this team goes quite far. And again, they do have a good backup in there, which is somebody that I think you wanted from Winnipeg, wasn't it, Ryan?
Yeah, my hero, my fantasy football hero, Dustin Crum, is the backup in Montreal, and I agree with you that Davis Alexander is the big storyline for this team because it was a tale of two teams. Like we talk about how they finished second in the division with what was it, a 10-8 record, I think, there last season, and you go back to the start of the season where they won their first 3 games. And after those first 3 games, I remember claiming like Montreal's going to lock up the East Division by Labor Day. Like who's going to beat them? Because they were so dominant defensively. Davis Alexander was getting it done. They had a lot of firepower there as well. And then Alexander got injured and McLeod Bethel-Thompson came in, and we saw James Morgan come in at times last year. Caleb Evans, then he got hurt. Shea Patterson was involved. Cameron Dukes was involved in different categories. They had like 5 different quarterbacks just to try to replace Davis Alexander, and the stat difference between the games where he was there and the games he wasn't was astronomical. Like this team finished 7th and 8th in a lot of offensive categories last season because they had nothing in the tank when he was out of the lineup, and they struggled for a while and they had their ups and downs, and suddenly they finished strong when he did come back, and that he helped propel them all the way to the finals. And yeah, they fell short to the Saskatchewan Roughriders, but it was a pretty gutsy effort from Alexander, who was not healthy at that point in time. So to me, he's really one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the CFL. Like we would have liked to do our typical off-season show of ranking the quarterbacks and ranking the running backs and ranking the wide receivers, but due to scheduling, we just haven't had the time, and now we're into division preview mode. I would put I'm curious, where would you rank Davis Alexander on your quarterback rankings? Because to me, right now in the CFL, I'm probably putting him 2 or 3.
I would say that's pretty close. I mean, I would think probably there's a certain quarterback way on the other end of the CFL spectrum in the West Division that I think is probably still number one. But I think probably Davis Alexander would probably be close second, maybe third. Like, I mean, those two are like two and three, right around there. I would say is very close. Probably I put him at two right now. I mean, if he can stay healthy, I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Uh, he's tough. I'll give him that. So a year of training and an off season of training, he says he's 100% when I've been hearing what out of the Montreal camp. It sounds like everything's a go with Alexander. Nothing's wrong from last year after having a little bit of trouble there in the Grey Cup game. Honestly, I would say he's probably number two on the list right now.
I mean, his first career loss as a starter was in the Grey Cup, was it not? Right? Like 13 straight starts, best start to a career in CFL history. Mm-hmm. And they really struggled when he wasn't there. And so I'm super excited for them to have Dustin Crum as the backup in the room right now. Different people have different opinions on him. There's a lot of people that are down on him based on what they've seen from him in Ottawa. You know, the wins, like he's not always able to pull out the wins. He also hasn't had the best system, I feel like, there. And I think learning in this system with Davis Alexander, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony Calvillo is he not involved in the coaching staff in some way, shape, or form here? He is the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for the Montreal Alouettes. So, you know, we've seen Crum pull some magic out of there, and that just might be what this team needs if Davis Alexander goes down, because I agree with you. Yes, they lost some pieces on defense, but overall I see a lot of defensive talent on this team. I see a lot of young talent as well that stepped up last year into larger roles that are going to make an impact this season as well on defense there. I'm excited about the running back room on this team. Stevie Scott III, Travis Tice, the two combo of them, they were my kind of, you know, underrated cheap running backs in CFL fantasy last year that I fell in love with them and I wanted to keep using them, and they didn't always hit because you had the two of them. You had Sean Thomas Erlington, who has since retired, in there as well. It's a crowded room. So that's a storyline for me to be intrigued about, is who actually gets the reins here at running back, and do they get a full-time job? It was Scott's down the stretch last year when Tice was injured in the late games of the season, and he really made an impact in the playoffs. So I would give him the inside track, and maybe Travis Tice is more involved on the return duties and special packages around there as well.
Yeah. Well, and they're going to need a return guy. I mean, if it isn't going to be James Letcher went into Saskatchewan, so I mean, they need.
Well, they also signed Devontae Dedman, who has had some injury history as well, but if he does stay healthy, is one of the most explosive return men in CFL as well. We haven't talked about the receivers yet for the Alouettes. I think mostly a lot of carryover from last year, but we do see Austin Mack go off to Edmonton, and it looks like we see most notably in there Jareth Stearns coming over from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to join the Alouettes. So not a whole lot of change. I mean, I know Stearns had a really good season last year in Winnipeg, and Mack did have some injury issues there as well. So I would say pretty status quo for the Montreal Alouettes here at wide receiver. What do you think?
Yeah, I think somebody just needs to go there, and they need one more good American receiver, whether it's, and again, I hope somebody takes a spot and does something. So I would hope that you see a Alexander Hollins. I think he's still there. Hopefully he takes another step up and tries to do something. So we'll see how that works. And the other one also, again, Jareth Stearns, I think he was underrated in Winnipeg. I don't know why Winnipeg didn't play him more than they did. He was injured, I guess, maybe a little bit too there. He was in Saskatchewan before, and I really did like Jareth Stearns. So good pickup by them. Is he an Austin Mack, though? That's going to be the big question. And losing an Austin Mack, I don't care. That is a big loss. Montreal didn't use him as much as some other players. I mean, Philpo obviously stepped up, and there was a few others that have gained in there. Cole Speaker, a few others that have really stepped up for the Alouettes to prove that they should be there. But boy, I would like to see again something like see one receiver really step up and stand out for the Alouettes. I'm wondering if it won't be Alexander Hollins.
He's been known to be a big game receiver in the past, just, seemed to have some issues that led to him going out of BC. And then from there also after that with Montreal last year, was with the team for a while and struggled to get into the lineup there as well. I see we've got somebody back here in the waiting room that we haven't seen here in a long time. Trey, you're alive and muted.
Start the season off right. It's either Adam, but that's fine. We'll do it good. Boys, I just wanted to stop in, say hi. I gotta get my NIL money, so I gotta make an appearance once in a while, right? So, but hope that I'm so ready for the new season, and I'll have to drop my top 5s this week in the Discord too. So,
Trey, we just need one thing out of you. What's your most controversial take for the East Division so far for this season?
Well, oh man, where did I have him? I had Chad Kelly in my top 5 quarterbacks. I can't remember what number I had in the league, but he was definitely top 5. Quickly, I can't remember. I left it on my other laptop, but yeah, I definitely had him in the top 5. I maybe had him over Rourke. I can't remember, but we'll see.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me that you would have Nathan Rourke that low, but
I can't remember. I did bump Rourke up. Initially, I didn't even have him in the top 5, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. But you know what? I'll say it this way, though, real quick, and then I'm going to go because I got to go early morning. But I think that also speaks to the league and how good a quarterbacks there are, that it was tough to make a top 5, even with only 9 guys, right? Like, there's a couple guys, like, I wasn't putting Caleros in there, or did I? No,
he's not number 1 again this year?
No, but, there was a bunch of guys that could arguably be in the top 5 if they have, Harris is up there, Adams could be in there, Rourke could be in there, Alexander could be in there. You know what, Caleros, if he really bounces back in the offensive line, he could be a top 5 quarterback by the end of the year. Bo Levi could be in that. Kelly's not complete joke to be in the top 5. Who am I missing? I'm missing what? Edmonton with Fajardo. He's been a top 5 quarterback definitely at times in this league. And the other one would be Drew Brown, which again, if you give him an offensive line, again, you could see any of those guys arguably be a top 5 quarterback in this league. So anyway, good luck, guys. Best of luck rest of the show. I just want to say hi.
Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you guys
again. All right. Nice to have Trey stop by for a couple of minutes. I know he's very busy today, so a little sprinkle of Trey for everybody, a little tidbit there, and hopefully we get him back in for a full regular show in the next couple of weeks. Going back to rounding it out with the Montreal Alouettes here, just talking about the fantasy angle of it. Who stands out to you as notable fantasy players across this team?
Well, you actually mentioned him. Stevie Scott is one of those that he will be a very cheap pick for the beginning of this for a starting running back. And I think he might be one of those that you really got to watch early. Though usually most rosters there's lots of options usually at the beginning of the season. But Stevie Scott's one of those that's pretty intriguing. And he was last year on my list quite a few times as well when I was picking for the things. So you know what? I don't mind Stevie Scott. Obviously, you know what? Alexander is another one. I mean, he's definitely earned the spot. Depends on the cost, I guess. Depends what they come up with when they actually, set up the thing and make it go live. But Alexander would be another one. If you really are looking for a quarterback, honestly, you can't go wrong with him right now. The third one, Montreal, if you got it, again, I'm just spitballing here. I'm going with what the weekly was last year. Montreal's defense was always a pretty good pick last year. They were one of those teams that didn't let a lot of points on you, so you didn't have to worry about being negatives all the time with Montreal, and they would get you those turnovers. So I like the defense. I liked Stevie Scott and Davis Alexander. Honestly, he's a good pick too.
I'm a little lower on Davis Alexander's fantasy prospect because I think a lot of times last year, I mean, he racked up the wins, right? But that didn't necessarily translate to the fantasy points. Like he averaged only 18.6 on the season last year from my notes here. And because I don't think he played the final week of the regular season. So that looks accurate there. And a large part of that was he threw for over 300 yards regularly, but out of his 7 starts, he only had 2 games with more than 1 touchdown pass. And he also didn't run the ball a ton. And especially coming off of the injury and the rehabbing related to the injury, how much is he going to run with the ball? How aggressive is he going to be early in the season there with that regard? I think his status and his growth throughout last season in fantasy drafts this year is going to make him be somebody that people want to draft because they think he's going to elevate it to the next level. So I think he's going to be more expensive from the drafting perspective than maybe his fantasy output has been, but he is still a young quarterback. You can definitely take it to the next level. You talked about the running backs. I agree, everything there. We didn't mention in the changing of the guard at wide receiver that Charleston Rambo is no longer in Montreal as well. He was not re-signed this offseason. So, he had an up and down season last year, never really took off most weeks. But Tyson Philpott and Tyler Snead should be 2 of the top players considered for any fantasy draft, especially if you're doing the new official CFL fantasy and you have the need for a Canadian spot on there. Tyson Philpott fits that perfectly. I mean, he averaged 14 points a game last season, and there were a couple up and downs, but most of his games were 7+ targets. That to me is reliable target share for a wide receiver along the way. Tyler Snead was a little bit more, some games he'd have the massive games, some games he'd have the 3 to 5 target games, and he had some disappointment for you. So I think it's more the consistency of Philpott and the boom and bust of Tyler Snead, but they are both 2 top-tier receivers that I would probably put in my top 5 or if not top 10 receivers in the CFL overall. Do we want to do a couple prop picks here for the Montreal Alouettes, Adam? What do you think here? Win total on the season over on. So I grabbed some odds, the latest odds from FanDuel, I should mention. Win total over under 10.5. You're muted.
I am muted. Sorry about that. You know what? 10.5, you said? I'm going to go with the over on that one there, just because I think they're in a pretty, I don't want to say a light division, but I think it's kind of theirs to lose. So, you know what? I'll go with the over on that one. I think probably it's going to be 11 or 12 for Montreal.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. I have this team, spoiler alert, finishing first place in the East Division. I think they're a really strong team across the board. They're a well-coached team, definitely as well. And I think they will be definitely over 10.5 wins on the season.
Also, just so you know, FanDuel, there's no such thing as a half win anymore. There's no ties. We can't have halves.
Yeah, makes it simpler. What do you think about passing yards? Davis Alexander, we just talked about him a bunch. Over under 4,150.
Ooh. He needs some time to gel with his receivers because he does have a few new ones to work with. He does have some other picks. If he stays healthy, I think you can almost go on the over on that one. It's a lot of yards. Give it that. I don't know if he's going to stay healthy though, so I'm going to go with the under on this one.
I'm going to bank on him being healthy and go with the over. He had over 2,000 yards in 7 games, so he should be able to hit 4,150 and more than that. No running back props for Montreal because I think there's still some consideration of who will get the bulk load between Scott III and Travis Tice, and what kind of split will that be? And then for receiving yards for the Alouettes, which one do you like more? Tyson Philpott, 1,000 at 0.5 yards, or Tyler Snead, 1,025.5?
I like Tyson Philpott for 1,000 plus yards. I think he's going to do it this year easily. You know what? He's going to have to be a big part of this Montreal team, and he's probably their premier receiver right now, definitely premier Canadian receiver. So yeah, give me him for over 1,000 yards for sure.
Yeah, he had 800 yards in 12 games last year. So if he can stay healthy, he should hit that. I do like that one as well. Also, what was that?
It's a lock.
Oh,
Had to.
I like
Sorry.
it. For those listening to the audio version, Adam has a bike lock or a locker lock or something that he just held up on screen. That was great. Yeah, I could see Tyler Snead hitting it as well. I mean, if I think that Alexander's going to throw for over 4,000 yards, who is the bulk of that going to go to? It's going to go to Tyler Snead. It's going to go to Tyson Philpott. So I think both of those are, I would go the over on both of those. Grey Cup odds, we'll touch on our Grey Cup picks later on, but Montreal does have the highest odds currently at plus 320 for the season. And I think that tracks based on where they finished last year and the strength of the division as well. What team do you want to go to next year? We should probably get this moving along quickly.
Yeah, let's go to the what do you think? Let's go over to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I think, for a moment, if we can. And
Sure,
just take
Hamilton,
a look at them.
Yeah, Hamilton Tiger Cats finished 11-7 in 2025, first in the East Division, ended up losing to the Montreal Alouettes in the East Final, and yeah, opening expectations for the team coming into this year. I mean, the offense looks as powerful as ever. They made some, we talked last off season, the big storyline there was that they brought in Kenny Lawler and they brought in a couple other options, and this receiving core looked deadly. Maybe I'm going to backtrack on what I just said as I'm digesting the roster here and more as we go through it as well. I think there are a few more questions maybe than last year. I think there is still a lot of firepower. Notable changes on the offensive side of the ball that Tim White, mainstay in this team, 1,000-yard receiver for 4 years, is now off to Winnipeg. But they do bring in Curly Gittins Jr. From Edmonton. They do bring in Carrick Wheatfall from Winnipeg, who had some breakout games last season. So I think that's still a pretty talented receiving core there. Notably, Greg Bell. The Ticats do not decide to proceed to sign Greg Bell, who goes off to Ottawa to be the highest paid American running back in the CFL. We'll talk about that maybe a little bit more with Ottawa. Leaves me a little bit of a question mark of what's happening at the running back position for Hamilton this season as a storyline to watch, with Johnny Augustine, who's been around for a while, both in Winnipeg and Hamilton, just waiting for a chance to be a starter. Is this finally the year that Augustine gets his shot to run with the football?
I think that's the biggest question for Hamilton right now. I mean, I know that they're set up for an offensive, a gunslinging kind of game. I mean, that's how Bo Levi Mitchell likes to play his game in Hamilton. And I mean, you're right. Adding Wheatfall, adding Gittins Jr., who needs a comeback, honestly. Good Canadian, but just it did not work out in Edmonton. It was starting to go. It was kind of turning sour there, I think. So I'm really kind of expecting to see quite a bit out of him to replace Tim White. Because they need it. I mean, Hamilton needs to get that Canadian wide receiver going. That I don't know if they've been missing it really, but they need a good receiver, and Curly Gittins Jr. And again, Wheatfall could be the other one as well. Both of them are good. But that's the biggest question they got is, can a Johnny Augustini take over for a Greg Bell? If he can, no problem. Greg Bell was a great running back. Honestly, came out of left field, out of nowhere. All of a sudden was just the starter. I mean, took the job from James Butler. James Butler is a great core running back in his own right. So, you know what? That's a big hole to fill. And I'm still questioning if it'll be Johnny Augustini. I mean, you know what? I hope that Hamilton has some plan in place, because right now, yeah, he's the guy going into this, and we're going to see what happens here. But again, it seems like Hamilton is not one of these teams that really worries as much about running back. Running backs will happen, and they seem to be okay, and that's how they always played it. It seems that they really focus on their receiving core, and their offensive line is usually very strong in Hamilton.
Yep.
So when their offensive line is I think it's pretty close to the same as last year. You know what? maybe they're focusing that it wasn't Greg Bell, it was the offensive line essentially, and that's what they're going with. So we'll see what happens in Hamilton.
My biggest concern for the Ticats on the defensive side of the ball, and I repeated this over and over late last season, that this team, despite winning the East Division, going absolutely nowhere in the playoffs because they could not stop the run for the life of them. Like, teams were running for 100+ yards with ease every single game on them. It was fantasy became pick the running back playing against the Ticats, essentially, no matter who it was at times last season. And ironically, they actually did shut down Stevie Scott III pretty well in that East final game, and they still lost despite that. So they shored up the one thing they should have there. But it wasn't enough to get it done. But I do have some concern. Like, if looking at the defensive breakdown, I mean, the defensive backfield is stacked. You've got the likes of, among many others, Jamal Peters is there, Reggie Stubblefield's there, Stavros Katsantonis is there. Like, they make up a really strong core of that defensive backfield. Massive addition for this team, Winton McManus at the linebacker position. I would say he was the biggest free agent fish out there on the defensive side of the ball. And he is now in a Ticats uniform coming over from Toronto. I know he had some injury concerns last year, but if he can stay healthy, having him in the middle quarterbacking that defense is going to do wonders for them, I think, in that regard. I think the rest of the linebacking core is a little bit thin around him. There's not a whole ton of experience. So, how much is he going to be able to carry that group there? And defensive line, I think they do have the ability to get some pretty good pressure on the quarterback with some of the options there. And I could be mistaken, but I believe was Julian House there? He was in Hamilton last year. Yeah, 13 sacks as the quarterback of that defensive line last year as well, returning for another year there. So still maybe some concerns by the defense. They have a lot of talent there. It's just that linebacking core that hopefully McManus can really elevate to the next level.
Yeah, it's McManus, but then also they added in Devin Varasek also into that linebacking core, and he really is looking like a promising linebacker.
But he's gone off to the NFL now.
Did he take off? Oh, I missed that. See what happens when you're running a tractor and not paying attention.
And I think that's what I missed there as well. So I'm happy you brought him up, because I also was like, they must have had more there last year. Who was it? And couldn't figure it out. And now that you mention him, yeah, he's signed with the Indianapolis Colts in the NFL.
I think the other
he was their Rookie of the Year nominee last year, I believe.
Yeah, I believe he was. So the other one also, I guess, would be Braxton Hill. I think was their other linebacker.
Yeah, he's still there, it looks like.
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah, he was showing from promise, but I mean, that was, you're right, their biggest downfall was they could get ran on pretty easily in the whole season last year. And you're right. I think that if they can shore that up, if Winton McManus is 100% ready to go and healthy, and they play Toronto a lot, so that's going to be, that McManus is going to be pumped up for those games. And I'm sure he's going to want to go, and Hamilton's going to pretty much say to him, there's Greg Bell over there, go and, quiet him down. So, you know what? If that's their biggest issue, they've had good defensive backs. They've been able to get into the secondary, or they've been able to get into the backfield a little bit with their defensive line. I think if they got the right linebacker, McManus is a big piece of that, alongside of Hill, I think they're better than they were last year, to be honest with you.
Any other storylines around the Ticats for you before we take a look at some of the fantasy options?
No, I don't think there was a whole lot that I had with Hamilton. I thought also they were missing, was it their kicker? No, the kicker stayed around. Was it
their punter, Constantino, I think, went off to the NFL as well. So there might be a punting battle there. Mark Leggio is still in Hamilton.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, it'll be interesting to see who wins the punting battle, I guess, in Hamilton. And don't get me wrong. Like, again, everybody looks at punting and says, who cares? Just need somebody to kick a football. That's not the case. Yeah, it's pretty critical to get that 50-plus yard punt when you need it, because otherwise you're starting in a bad field position. And in the CFL, that don't work so well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see on the punting situation what they have going on. Other than that, yeah, that's about what I have for Hamilton.
Let's talk about the fantasy angle of it all. I mean, Bo Levi Mitchell has somehow, turned from me like 2 or 3 years ago saying he's probably the 9th best quarterback you can have in an 8-team week in fantasy to, I mean, the last couple of years he's been like in the running for MOP, and he has been lighting it up, and he's become a very viable fantasy option and probably should be in consideration there. My problem with him as a fantasy quarterback is that he doesn't run, and you need mobile quarterbacks for fantasy. He did run more than ever before last year, but if he can consistently do what he did this past season and throw for 300 plus yards and 2+ or 3+ touchdowns, you're going to have 20-point weeks out of him there. In fact, you do need, with no rushing, you do need, with traditional fantasy scoring, 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions to hit a 20-point week, which I would say is kind of the barometer of what you want out of a quarterback. So I'm high on Levi Mitchell as well. My overall quarterback rankings, I'd probably put him, like non-fantasy rankings, I'd put him still at number 2, I think slightly ahead of Davis Alexander, probably behind Nathan Rourke in my quarterback rankings there. Fantasy-wise, I'd put him in the upper echelon as well because he has the ability to win you some weeks. And speaking of winning you some weeks, Kenny Lawler is a wide receiver that should go early and likely will go early in many, many fantasy drafts this year. There were, at the start of the year alone last year, there were 6 straight weeks where he was a top 10 finishing wide receiver, including a game of 44 points, another game later in the year of 33 points, and 2 of his last 3 on the season were 20 plus. So Kenny Lawler, I wonder if teams this year will game plan better around him. It seemed like they tried to double and triple team him at times last year, and it just didn't matter. It did slow him down a little bit halfway through the season, though, where teams started to catch on. That's where we saw the likes of Keandre Smith really step up into a prominent role in that offense, and he ended up becoming a 1,100-yard receiver last season as well. So those are probably the backbones of the receiving core in Hamilton fantasy-wise. Any of Bo Levi Mitchell's receivers are going to be intriguing options at their price in fantasy drafts and in weekly fantasy early on. Carrick Wheatfall's an underrated one who had some big games in Winnipeg and then kind of cooled off. If he becomes a featured part of that offense, that could look good. Curly Gittins Jr. is a possession receiver machine that will, if he gets enough targets, he never really breaks the game open, but if he gets the targets, that's going to help him out. And we haven't even talked about, could we maybe see a resurgence at all of Shamar Bridges this year, who was a 1,000-yard receiver in his rookie season and then really struggled in his sophomore year. What do you think about Shamar Bridges and his role in this offense?
I think, I think Shamar Bridges might be the next, I won't call him the next Tim White because that's pretty high praise. But you know what? Hey, a sophomore slump, everybody has a bad second year, it seems like in the CFL sometimes. And I don't think you're going to see that out of Shamar Bridges for a third year because I think he's going to be probably one of those that if you're looking for a value play, he probably would be a pretty good choice. I think he's going to be a pretty good receiver this season, especially seeing as now there's not a Tim White on this team. You've got just Shamar Bridges, you got Kenny Lawler, you still got O'Leary Orange. Or no, you don't. You have
he's off to Edmonton.
I said that wrong right after I caught myself saying it. Curly Gittins Jr. You still got a Kedrick Wheatfall to compete with, but you know what? And again, Smith as well. So look for Smith, look for Lawler. And I think the guy that's going to probably be the one to replace Tim White's kind of numbers a little bit will be Shamar Bridges. And I think Bo Levi Mitchell, when he did need that big play, he would look at Shamar Bridges once in a while. Just Bridges didn't have a good season last season.
It'll be interesting to see how, sorry to cut you off there, Adam. It'll be interesting to see what their lineup and depth chart looks like because they have a little bit of a logjam where you have Kenny Lawler, Shamar Bridges, and Carrick Wheatfall are all guys who typically, if you look at a depth chart, would play that left wideout spot on the depth chart. And we saw that. I think that was the biggest knock on Bridges' season last year was that rookie season he was at that left wideout. Then they brought in Kenny Lawler. They moved him all the way to the opposite side of the depth chart, which a lot of teams, including Bo Levi Mitchell last season, just didn't really target at all. So if he's stuck in that position, I'm more doubtful for him there. Tim White's gone, so there's the slot to the left of the quarterback that's going to be open there. That's a role that Curly Gittens Jr. can pretty easily slide into. He plays slot quite a bit, but how else do they maneuver this around as well to fit all of these pieces in here will be interesting to watch and may impact the fantasy relevancy of them. I kind of like Gittens more so for that as somebody who traditionally plays slot and can slide right into that spot that we've seen from the likes of Tim White in the past.
Yeah, and the only other player that I did want to bring up, Brian, I know you said Bo Levi Mitchell could be potentially still a good look at a fantasy pick. I'll be honest with you, I did not even have him in my top 5 this year. The reason is I've seen Bo Levi Mitchell sometimes have some awesome games, and I've seen Bo Levi Mitchell come out there once in a while, and I have a funny feeling, you know what? Father Time is still undefeated. One of these years, it's got to happen to Bo. It's just the way it goes. It sucks.
Okay.
Every time we say this, he goes and sticks it up our, where. But you know what? I have a funny feeling it's finally time. Bo Levi Mitchell, I love you, but you know what? Everything goes to the wayside eventually. Age is not a thing that's, again, we've seen some old Bo as well sometimes, and I don't know how much I like picking Bo, and that's why I don't pick a lot of Bo Levi Mitchell on my fantasy teams, especially for a season-long fantasy. I don't know if I could trust him right now. Just the age, and you know what? It's going to catch him one of these years.
He'll forever hold a place in my heart for being the $100 waiver wire man in our private fantasy league. That led to the only season that I've lost because I wasted all my waiver money on him that year. But that's besides the point. You got to have some fun when you're playing fantasy. We haven't even talked about who his backup is this year, and that's Trey Ford, who is coming over from Edmonton. What do you think the Trey Ford of it all looks like in black and gold this year?
I hope that he does just like I'm going to say eventually about a certain blue and gold team. I hope that they keep him on the bench. They get him healthy. They let him learn behind one of the best quarterbacks in the league that's ever done it. That's what I hope for Trey Ford, that he can learn, hey, I've got time. Hey, I can make that play. Hey, I can do something with this. I can beat people with my arm versus beat people with my legs. And that's what Trey Ford's biggest issue has been lately, has been run first, think about it second, maybe throw the ball third. And once he throws that ball, sometimes it gets a little inaccurate, and that's what happens. I think a lot I've seen with Trey Ford. So, you know what? I hope that Bo Levi Mitchell is a good mentor, because you know what? Trey Ford's going to have to come in sometime. He's going to be in there. There's no way that I could see Bo Levi Mitchell making it a full season again without a little bit of a nick or a little bit of an injury or something, maybe a game. Maybe it's just one game, but Trey Ford is going to get his shot. And you know what? When he does, I hope that he's had a lot of experience sitting on the bench, watching what works for, again, he did it lots in Edmonton last year. He was watching at Cody Fajardo, what worked for him. I hope he's doing the same thing in Hamilton. He's got a good arm on Trey Ford. He does. He's got a big arm when he wants to throw the football. He just needs to know how to be accurate with it. And you know what? The guy that he's behind right now in the depth chart, which I'm assuming he'll be behind in the depth chart. Never know. Maybe he'll beat him out for number 1.
Yeah, no.
No. But you know what? He does have the same kind of arm strength as Bo Levi Mitchell. So honestly, he could go and develop into a good quarterback. But he's got to learn and he's got to develop. And like I said, for my year, I hope he does just like a certain team in blue and gold, and they put him with a bench on the bench with a clipboard and learning.
Could you imagine how much the CFL community would explode if the Ticats finally broke the streak and won the Grey Cup this year off the back of Trey Ford after Bo Levi Mitchell goes down to an injury, after all the bagging that has happened on Trey Ford this year, that he leads the team through the playoffs to a Grey Cup win?
And faces Nathan Rourke. Why not?
Like that would be quite the crazy storyline. I for one hope Bo Levi Mitchell does stay healthy. I mean, obviously you do as well.
Obviously,
everybody hopes the guy stays healthy. I think we're getting close to the end of his career. I think we're at another year or two, and I want to see him go out strong on top, right? And I think we do as well. I hate seeing guys try to stick around longer than they should and kind of fizzle out their careers as well. Like, power to him at his age, like staying dominant and returning to dominance there. Let's dive into some prop bets here for the Ticats. Over under win total 8.5. I'm going to go over. I think this team is often a team that hovers around that 500 mark at the end of a season, and I think they do have a lot of talent on board here, and I think they will get a couple extra wins than that this season. I have them at like a 9 or a 10 win team.
Just for the controversy, actually, I'm going to take the under on this. And
Okay.
the reason being is, again, I think that you're going to see a sort of a slow transition to a different quarterback. And it's also the running back issue. I still say in Hamilton for me. I don't know. Johnny Augustini's got to prove that he's going to be a starting running back. And until then, I don't have as much faith in Hamilton on that part. I like their defense. I like their receivers. I don't like the running back game, especially. And I'm still saying they're one hit away from being the Edmonton Elks last year with Trey Ford in the backfield. So I don't like that. And you know what? So in this case, I could see a 7-10. I could see an 8-10, or sorry, an 8-10, 7-11 team in Hamilton. So you know what? That's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with the under.
Let's go passing yards. Bo Levi Mitchell has the highest passing yard prop out of the East Division at 4,600.5 yards on the season. What did he hit last year overall? Let me dig that up. That's important to know. I want to say he hit 5,000. Yeah, he's hit 5,305 last year. So we're talking about a 700-yard dip. I'm not going to bank on the injury side of it as well, so I would take the over on that. With Greg Bell being out, question marks at running back, I see them going again pass heavy with this offense once again this year and airing the ball out in the defense, maybe putting them in a situation at times to have to do that. So give me over on Bo Levi Mitchell, but I sense you're going to go under based on what you were talking about with him.
Yeah, and it's not more of Bo Levi Mitchell maybe getting hurt. It's more of, can Johnny Augustini back up his quarterback and go and do a little bit of run protect, because he's going to need to. Otherwise, yeah, Bo Levi Mitchell needs time to get to those receivers like Gittins Jr., like Kenny Lawler. So he needs his time. So will he get it? I don't think as much this year. So I'm going to go with the under on this one, because I think Greg Bell was a better blocking running back more than Johnny Augustini.
Now, Greg Bell was also a high receiving volume running back. He was getting 5 or 6 targets at least a game, sometimes up to 8 last year, which when we get into the receiver props means potentially more opportunities for the receivers unless they use Augustine in the same way. Kenny Lawler at 1210.5, Keandre Smith at 975.5, and Curly Gittins Jr. at 825.5. What intrigues you amongst the receivers there?
Keandre Smith, I think, is going to get over 1,000 this year, because he's going to have to, essentially, because you've lost all of Tim White's numbers out of there. So
yeah.
Somebody's got to take that up. And if it isn't Keandre White, who is it? Could be Shamar Bridges, as I've said earlier, but you know what? I think I'm going to go with Keandre Smith with the over on over 975. I think you said. So I'm going to go with him on the over. Kenny Lawler's a lot of yards, boy. That's a lot of yards to ask for.
He hit over 1,400 last year, so he cleared this by 200 last season.
True, but I don't know. He doesn't have the distractions on some of the other spots. So also he doesn't have the Tim White on the other side that defenders have to watch for as well. So they can key in maybe a touch on Kenny Lawler. So you know what? Now I'm going to say the under on that one there. Although it's Kenny Lawler, he's a good receiver. So, and then the other one there, Curly Gittins Jr. I think you said over 800 and some.
825.
825. I'm going to stick with the over on that one. I think 900 is not a very hard number to reach, especially if you are dressing for a majority of the games. No, I'll go with the over on that one.
Yeah, I think honestly I go for the over on all of these. Lawler's the toughest one because you said, like you said, it is so high there. And what if the game plan changes a little bit? Curly Gittens Jr. I actually really like because he last year had 777 receiving yards on the Edmonton Elks, a team that started their first 6 games of the season with hardly passing the ball. In fact, 2 of his first 3 games of the year last year were 1 yard, 95 yards, and then 6 yards. And then he had a couple up and down games, and most of his games kind of maxed out at the 70 yards last year. He's going to get more than that in a Bo Levi Mitchell offense. Like, if he only has to get 50 more yards in a high passing offense, that's going to happen this season. Yeah, DeAndre Smith, one of the most underrated receivers in the CFL. He really came alive at times last season as well. So I think it's not unreasonable for all 3 of these to hit the over on that as well. Grey Cup odds have the Ticats at plus 650, so 4th highest odds in the CFL.
Yeah. No, I could see it. I mean, I think there's other teams that probably I'd still put above the Ticats, so I don't see the streak. I'm sorry, Hamilton fans. I don't see the streak happening this year that it goes on, that it keeps, that it gets taken away. But you know what? And it's not a streak you want. So I don't know if it'll happen this year, but you know what? I think, hey, if you get a quarterback like Trey Ford that can develop and you get one more year, never know.
Let's move on and talk about the Ottawa Redblacks next. I think they're the most interesting team to me, maybe in the CFL, maybe for sure in the East, to talk about like they are every year, because there just seems to be new changes that are really exciting to watch and figure out what the heck is going to happen. And we're all going to have high hopes, and then we're all going to be disappointed. And hopefully one of these years we won't be. Most notably, the coaching change for the Ottawa Redblacks and the management change is massive. Ryan Dinwiddie coming in from the Toronto Argonauts to this Ottawa team that finished 4-14 this past season. Year before, they showed some promise. They made the playoffs. This last year really didn't go their way. They end up firing Bob Dice at the end of the season. Ryan Dinwiddie comes in a coach and a GM role, starts putting his stamp on the offense or on the coaching staff, starts putting his stamp on the roster this offseason. And I'm a big Ryan Dinwiddie fan. I know he rubs some people the wrong way with his comments and his interactions in the media and things like that. I think what he has done with the Toronto Argonauts in the last couple of years was fantastic. And there's one thing Ryan Dinwiddie has done well is really elevate a team's offense, and that is exactly what the Red Blacks needed. And I'm excited to see what impact he has on this team with the likes of what does the development of Drew Brown look like coming out of this year. You know, I had him pegged last year as an MOP candidate coming into the year, thinking he would take off, and then injury troubles and the offensive line couldn't keep him healthy. They bring in Greg Bell as the top tier paid American running back. William Stanback retired, I believe, if I saw correctly. So Greg Bell comes in as the starter. They also have Daniel Adebaboye still there. And they make a nice addition with Aiden Eberhardt from the BC Lions at receiver here as well to replace Braylon Addison, who I think also has hung up the cleats. So a couple of retirements, a couple changing the guard for the Ottawa offense here. But they've got Ryan Dinwiddie at the helm, who has been able to elevate not just Chad Kelly out of nowhere a couple of years ago, but then look what Nick Arbuckle did in Toronto last season, even though it didn't pile up to wins in the standings. I don't know. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid here again, Adam, early on, and I'm kind of excited to watch these Red Blacks play. How are you feeling?
I like what they've done. I mean, I've said this for how many years already that, you know what, every year we get into this, and I've been with you, Ryan, on this. I've been drinking the red Kool-Aid too quite a bit in latest terms. But you know what? This isn't your Bobby Dice team anymore. I can put it that way. Ryan Dinwiddie is going to go and have those guys just running because that's how Ryan Dinwiddie works. He's a player's coach, but he's one of those that expects a lot out of you if you're on his team. And you know what? yeah, he rubs play. You're right. He's kind of like the Luke Wilson of Luke, uh, of what do you call of coaches, because he's a guy that says what he thinks and thinks what he says, but he does what he says, and he's a good coach. You can't take that away from him. He is one of those that, yeah, he'll be controversial. He'll say something that you won't expect in a media interview. And you know what? Yeah, I love it. It's great. And you know what? I think Ottawa fans are going to love that too. That no nonsense attitude, I think, is going to really go and fit well with the Ottawa fan base. This being said, I liked what they did with their defense. I like what they added to their defense, especially some of my old Rough Riders.
Yep.
Some of them in there are players that I really, really wanted to see stay in Saskatchewan, and they didn't. But you know what? Honestly, I like everything Ottawa has done. I like that they brought in a great running back. They needed one. I mean, sorry, but what they had last year just wasn't going to work for a running back team. I mean, they need to run the football a bit more effectively and get those 6-7 yards or more on first down. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So Greg Bell is one of those guys that can get you 6, 7, 8 yards on first down. And you know what? That Ottawa can do what they did last year if they really wanted to and pitch that 3-yard pass. But you know what? Ryan Dinwiddie isn't that type. He's going to go and use his receivers like Nick Marner and a few others to make those big, long passes. And I expect Nick Marner to be a big part of this team this year because they need a good, solid Canadian receiver. Overall, I'm in the same boat as you, Ryan. I'm drinking the red Kool-Aid again. It tastes great in the offseason, but boy, does it get better, and I hope it doesn't this year when the actual bullets start flying.
Yeah, I think part of it has been coaching, and I say it over and over again. Bob Dice seems like a great human. Never interacted with him in any way, but seems like a great human, just much like his predecessor in Ottawa in Paul LaPolice. To me, better coordinator than a head coach, and I don't think that was working. And so Ryan Dinwiddie's going to come in, he's going to leave his stamp on this team, and he's going to make his mark with this team. And so I do think that is going to help elevate them. Because like I said, the Argos have won, they won the Grey Cup, two out of 3 years in a row there. And I didn't think particularly on the offense side of the ball, they didn't have any this in the running as top player in the CFL in my eyes on the team. They had a lot of studs that just across the board were elevated by the play across the team. So I'm excited to see what stamp he puts on them here. The offensive line is continuing seemingly to go through some changeover with the team as well. I've been trying to nail down the exact names, but I know they let a couple of guys go. I believe a couple of guys retired on that offensive line. Peter Godber, I think, retired. Who was just moved to the retirement list, notably? I want to say Gregor McKellar. Don't quote me if I'm wrong.
I know Darius Bladek was released, but
Bladek was released. That was one of the big ones I've been trying to think about there as well. Thank you for filling in that one there as well. So there is some changing of the guard. They also brought in Sean McEwen, who you're familiar with from his time in Saskatchewan, that can fill that role as well. They drafted an offensive lineman first overall in the draft this year who should get involved in there. And they do still have some of the mainstays that we've seen from the past couple of years as well. So to me, it's all going to come down to, can you keep Drew Brown healthy, and can the offensive line keep him from falling to the ground constantly throughout the game? And what does the play calling look like? I thought the play calling sucked in Ottawa for a lot of last season as well. And I mean, I've been pretty vocal about not being a fan of Tommy Calendell's play calling, which makes me so happy to live in Winnipeg currently. We'll get to that next week if we have to. But I didn't think the play calling was that great a lot of times. They never really stretched the field, despite having some of the best stretch the field receivers in the CFL, and the likes of Eugene Lewis. I'd throw Khalil Pimpleton, who had a down year for a large part there. Justin Hardy is in conversation as a top receiver in the CFL. I think Eberhardt's a really exciting piece to bring in as well. I think that's going to be an underrated one for fantasy also when we get to that part for them on the offensive side. So I think they have a lot of talent on the roster, and if they can just gel, I think they do have the opportunity to make some headway in the East Division here this season. One interesting player swap to talk about that I know you might have some feelings about, Adam, is the kicker position. When you think Ottawa Redblacks, to me, for the longest time, you think Lewis Ward, because you had that streak and those miraculous seasons that he had, and he kind of has fallen off the last couple of years. So they decide to part ways with Lewis Ward and bring in your beloved Brett Lauder, who was released by the Saskatchewan Roughriders. What do you think about what we're going to see from Lauder this year in Red and Black?
I'll be honest with you. I hope he has a perfect season, except for 2 games against a certain team in green and white. You know what? Hey, I think a lot of it was you're dealing in, let's face it, in Saskatchewan, it's kind of almost like if you're looking at the NHL, it's like the Toronto Maple Leafs. If you ain't kicking great, you're going to be rattled in Saskatchewan. And unfortunately, that's what happened to Brett Lauder, I think, a little bit. He lost the confidence of Corey Mason. I'm sorry, but you know what? In the end, things had to move. You know what? Lewis Ward not being the kicker in Ottawa is going to look weird as all heck, because I think he was maybe their only kicker they've ever had. I don't know who's another Ottawa Redblacks kicker, to be honest with you. He's been there forever. He has the streaks, I think, he had those long streaks going on there. But hey, if you like a kicker that can usually kick a long ball, if he's got no pressure on him, Brett Lauder's your guy. I still have confidence that Brett Lauder will make you a kick when he needs to make a kick, but he's just got to have that pressure off him. And when you're in a screaming stadium of 30,000 fans, it don't matter which one it is. It might be the same thing in Ottawa too, in a way, because don't forget, he's closer to home in Atlantic Canada, is also in Ottawa. He's a lot closer to home, so he might get some more fans that he knows. But hey, you know what? It was a year that Brett Lauder was in transition a little bit, because he had a new kid. He was just got married. He had a whole lot of things going on. Sometimes a change of scenery. The grass is sometimes greener than it is in Saskatchewan. So you know what? Honestly, I hope he does the best in Ottawa. I hope that he has a heck of a good long streak, except, miss one or hit the crossbar when you're in Saskatchewan. Sorry. But yeah, that's honestly, I think he's going to do well in Ottawa. And honestly, I could see Lewis Ward getting a job if there's a kicking game that's kind of looking a little bit questionable.
I'm rooting for a Mark Leggio-esque resurgence for Brett Lauder. He got run out of Winnipeg, and he has been fantastic in Hamilton in the years ever since. So rooting for a comeback for him there. Anything else on the Red Blacks storylines, or let's dive into fantasy talk?
Well, I just was the only thing otherwise I was going to bring up is watch this defense this year. This is going to be a very, very good defense. AJ Allen was really good in Saskatchewan, probably one of their more underrated players. And also Haba Baldonado. Remember that name. He's going to be really good in Ottawa. Yeah, those are 2 guys. I just went and looked it up just to make sure I got the names right. CJ Rivas also comes over from Saskatchewan. Those are 3 big pieces that Saskatchewan needed last year at times. And boy, Ottawa's got them. And I think that Ottawa is going to be one of those defense. You know what? They're going to be a way better defense than they were last year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. Their defense historically, to me, has always been just middle of the pack, right? Like, or at the bottom of the pack at times as well. Like last year, I think they were actually highly underrated. We looked at a few games early on where they got burned really bad deep and said, oh, this team is going to be terrible. And then they actually turned it around and locked in quite a bit later on in the season. It just didn't lead to wins because, frankly, they weren't putting points on the board. It was the offense that let them down more than defense, more than anything last season. So the offense can step it up. The defense can lock it down more. That might lead to some more success for the Red Blacks. Talking through the fantasy options here, Drew Brown isn't somebody high on my draft list, honestly, even though, like I said, Dinwiddie has turned things around for a lot of quarterbacks. He doesn't fit the mold to me of a good fantasy quarterback. He had 18 rushing yards on the season last year, and that was it. He ran the ball only 9 times. That to me is a concern. He also threw some interceptions regularly last year. He also, had games of underwhelming passing numbers. He was kind of boom or bust. He had games of like 400 passing yards, and then he had games of under 200 passing yards multiple times. Couple that with coming off, the injury history last year with the offensive line unknowns, I think I'd probably put Drew Brown lower on my draft rankings, but he's somebody where if others might jump to the big name quarterbacks first, I don't mind waiting till later in the draft and taking a flyer on Drew Brown there as well. Running back Greg Bell, I really don't know what to expect. They gave him a lot of money, but the Redblacks didn't use their running backs much the last couple of seasons to the effect that they should. New coaching staff. Ryan Dinwiddie really didn't run the ball much in Toronto last year either with his offense there. Like we saw the breakout of Spencer Brown down the stretch, who was very involved in the receiving game, 7+ targets in 3 of his last 4 games. Well, that fits perfectly with the Greg Bell mold, where if he's getting that many targets here in this Ottawa offense, he's going to be viable for fantasy no matter what, despite getting probably under 10 carries. And I think Daniel Adeboboye will probably get some time in that offense as well. So I don't know if I'm drafting Bell as my first or second running back necessarily. I think the passing volume is going to make him in contention no matter what as a strong fantasy play for the season. But I do have a little bit of caution there. Any thoughts on Brown or Bell before we talk about the receivers?
Really not a whole lot. I mean, Bell, I think, still has got a little bit more upside than what you're giving him. That being said, I'd really like to see what this offensive line can do in Ottawa before anything. Again, if they can't open holes, Greg Bell had a great offensive line in Hamilton. Ottawa, they've been making some changes and changing around things. Yes, they got a big pickup in the first overall draft pick. But again, do you want to see him out there immediately? I don't know. And again, it takes time for offensive lines to gel. So I'm going to see what Greg Bell does. If he starts to look like a little bit of hints like he did in Hamilton, I wouldn't mind picking him up, definitely in weeklies when I need to for maybe a value play, because I think he'll be fairly valuable. Drew Brown, again, weekly, yes, I'd probably look at him once in a while when depending on what team they're playing. But as a season-long guy, nope. Sorry, there's better options out there right now than taking Drew Brown.
Who would you rather draft at wide receiver, Justin Hardy or Eugene Lewis? Which one would you go first if you had the option of both?
Justin Hardy. I like Justin Hardy just because he has that continuity. Like, he knows this Ottawa team. He knows this how this team works. Yes, it's not a Tommy Condell offense anymore, so that might hurt him a little bit. But honestly, Justin Hardy is so consistent every year. Nobody takes him until later on in a draft, and you end up picking him up for almost nothing, and then you're laughing the whole time while you have him. Except for last year because Ryan figured out my plan.
But, yeah, you're not getting them past round 1 or round 2 in the draft this year, to be honest, Adam.
Not a chance. There. I know. But like I said, back in the day, I could not believe that my luck went that far. But you know what? Honestly, Eugene Lewis, good receiver. But everybody knows Eugene Lewis. They should know Justin Hardy by now. But either one is a good pickup. But Justin Hardy's the guy to pick up.
There's going to be a lot of work in the receiving corps to be spread around this year as well with the departure of Braylon Addison off to retirement. I like as an underrated mid-draft to late draft play either, honestly, Khalil Pimpleton or Aiden Eberhardt because they are both big game guys and they showed it. Eberhardt had a very underrated season in BC last year. He finished the year with 863 yards. Would you have guessed that was the number? I probably wouldn't have if I didn't know, right? Like that we don't talk about him as that upper echelon guy necessarily, but he can fill a void there as well. Khalil Pimpleton took a little bit of a step back last year, but still finished the year with 722 yards, which is very respectable after his fantastic breakout season. So again, these are guys where I expect the offense to be improved this year that I would potentially take flyers on and have intrigue as late round picks and drafts.
And the other one, I still say, if you're really looking for one that I think will go and develop and could be a very good receiver for a person, is Nick Marnder. He was injured last year for most of the season, and that's what really pulled off his numbers and got people not looking at him. If he's healthy, I think he can be one very, very good receiver for this Ottawa Redblack team. So see what he does. I do like Khalil Pimpleton. That's a pick that I think will come back this year and really kind of get you some points when you're needing it. And he though seems like more of a boomer bust. He has like one all-star game, and then all of a sudden you're like, what? And where did he go? So you know what? Those are my two at least. And go from there. See what you got. And if you need some good receivers, Ottawa's got a couple.
Quick thoughts on the backup situation, because we've talked about Drew Brown and the injury question marks so much, because they do move on from Dustin Crum. I believe they moved on as well from Tyree Adams. It's Jake Mayer as the backup, and then Max Duggan, who was just let go by the Toronto Argonauts the other day as well. How are you feeling about Jake Mayer potentially stepping into the limelight here if he does need to?
I think that he'd be a very good pickup, honestly. I think that he needed a change of scenery when he left Calgary, and I think he got it in Saskatchewan. I think he is a very solid number 2 quarterback for any team, anywhere, anytime. I think if he goes in, he's going to show that he can play football, and he can play very high-quality football for the Ottawa Redblacks. So if Drew Brown, I think, honestly, if Drew Brown suffers in the first 2-3 games, I could see Ryan Dinwiddie pulling the trigger quickly and going to a Jake Mayer, because I think that he is a guy that could be a fringe starter in this league and maybe even a full starter still. He just, again, had a little bit of a rough time there in Calgary, went to Saskatchewan, went there for a 1-year deal on a prove me deal, and he proved it that he could be a good second quarterback. So I wouldn't even be surprised. I haven't heard about training camp while things are going in Ottawa that horrible much, but it could be a battle for number 1. I don't think it is. I never heard nothing.
Definitely not.
No? Okay. So anyways, Drew Brown will be number 1, but again, I don't see the leash being not overly long on Drew Brown. So if there's trouble, I could see Jake Mayer going in.
Looking at some props here for Ottawa, the win total is over under 8.5. This one's the toughest one for me yet, because I see them right at that 8 or 9 win mark on the season. I don't want to go over on all of them, because then the math is just not going to math, and means I really hate the West Division this year if I go over on all of them. So give me the slightly under of like an 8-win or 7-win season for the Redblacks here. I think Dinwiddie helps elevate them to some degree, but maybe not enough in some tight divisional matchups.
Yeah, and I'm going to go actually just in the opposite again. I'm going to go with the over on this one. 9-win, potentially, maybe a 10-win. I don't see any more than that. It really depends on how they gel right off the bat and how they buy into Coach Dinwiddie's philosophy. If they go into it hard and they look at it and Dinwiddie says, look, I used to be a winning coach in Toronto and can bring some of that magic out, I could see them being an 8, 9, 10-win team. They could also be the other way. You're right. It's very tough on this one, because Ottawa is one of those teams that's always been, you got to prove it, and they haven't most years. So to say that they're actually going to be on the over, and I'm going to predict an over for them, is probably crazy. But yeah, I'm going to go with the over.
All right, and then we get into the passing props next, which is Drew Brown, 4,100.5. I
think it's on the under on that one. You know what? Unless Drew Brown really strikes lightning and can finally pull something off, like I said, I don't think the leash is very long on Drew Brown. So if Jake Maier gets in there, that pulls your averages down pretty fast and pulls your numbers down pretty quick. So.
Yeah, I think I'll go slightly under on this one as well. I mean, he in last year, what was it, 9 games, I think? He did pile up 2,389, so he's actually was on pace for like 4,700 if he could play the entire season. So I think there's a world he does surpass that. But it was very volatile, like I said. And if they are buying into Greg Bell, hopefully there is a little bit more balance to that offense and a little bit more running game involved in it, to the extent that I think that diminishes that a little bit. And it's less of an obvious pass-heavy attack, even though it should be a very pass-heavy attack still. So give me the under, but I'm not super confident either way on Drew Brown. The only running back rushing prop to talk about today, the aforementioned Greg Bell, over under 950.5. I'm going under because I don't think he's going to get enough carries to get that. I think Adebayoye will get some in there. I think they'll target him more passing, receiving yards. I'd almost have more confidence in him hitting 1,000 receiving yards than I have in him hitting 1,000 rushing yards on the season, to be honest.
Yeah, I look at it as he's got to gel with his new team. There's a lot of pieces that have to gel in this team, and that doesn't help you get over 1,000 rushing yards on a team. So Greg Bell, I'm sorry, but I think he's going to do okay in Ottawa. I don't know if I take him again for a season-long fantasy, and that means I wouldn't take him for over 950. I guess it is, right?
And then receivers, we kind of already talked about it. Eugene Lewis at 975.5, Justin Hardy at 1,000.5. I'd kind of be comfortable going with either. I see either of them being highly possible.
Yeah, I could too. I mean, the over on Justin Hardy usually hits over 1,000 yards pretty reliably, I think. And then same thing also Eugene Lewis. I mean, he's still Eugene Lewis. He's a great receiver. So I could see both of them going the same way. So, like I said, yeah, I could see both of them hitting it if they need to. So,
all right. Anything else we missed? Oh yeah, Grey Cup props for Ottawa, plus 950, 7th highest in the CFL. So
good value there, I think. I don't know. Trey's usually our resident degenerate better, but you know what? I'll go with what Trey would think. I think that's a pretty good number. 7th overall.
Yeah, I would consider it if they can go on a run and turn around. Yep. All right, we continue with our last team here on our marathon night here, Adam. Late at night, it's after 11 p.m. here in Winnipeg, but we got to talk about the Toronto Argonauts here for the 2026 season, and oh boy, where do we begin with the Toronto Argonauts? A 5-13 season last year. Head coach Ryan Dinwiddie leaves to Ottawa. We just talked about that. Mike Miller is taking over as the head coach in Toronto. And they also have the interesting challenge this year of the World Cup of Soccer being played at BMO Field in Toronto, which means the Argos are, I think, on the road for like the first 6 games of the year or something like that. And also only play 6 home games this year, where 3 of their home games are one is in Hamilton, 1 is in Saskatchewan, and 1 is in Winnipeg. Coming off of a losing season that seemed to have a lot of negativity around it in the locker room, and coming with the question mark of their starting quarterback who didn't play a single game last season and has fair share of controversy around himself after being suspended for half the season the season before in Chad Kelly. Where do we even begin to try to digest what this Argos team is going to be like this year?
Well, I'm going to tell you how we can digest it. They're going to have Looney Hot Dog night when they get back to BMO Field, so that's what matters the most. Because boy, you're going to need those Looney Hot Dogs, Toronto. This is going to be ugly. I'm sorry. I don't have any positivity on this team. New coach who, I'm sorry, I don't know who Mike Miller really is, to be honest, as a coach. You've got a quarterback that's just coming off of injury, essentially, and was off for a whole year. You've got, you're right, 6, 7 or more games that you're not even at home. You don't even get to play in front of your fans. They got to come out to Saskatchewan to come and watch your team play. And by the way, I'm going as an Argo fan that day. I don't care. That I have to do it. I'm sorry, Toronto. I got to give you some help. But you know what? Hey, I feel bad for this team. I really do. I feel bad for this fan base. I don't see any positivity in the light for this team. I like, I don't know. Again, they're not gonna be near their families. They're not gonna be sleeping in their own beds for almost a month or more. Like, this is ugly for the Toronto Argonauts, and I don't see a solution to this, and I certainly don't see how they're going to produce a lot of wins because of this. You're muted.
Oh, I almost unmuted before you mentioned it. I almost caught it. I saw it coming, but well, we've all done it today. I lasted the longest, at least, before messing up, so I get the trophy today. The deck is stacked against the Toronto Argonauts this season to bounce back. And last year, honestly, I thought they were a better team than what the end up results were. They just lacked the killer instinct in order to win games, right? Like, they had several games slip away from them at the end of it, where in absurd fashions, and they also pulled a couple wins out in absurd fashions at the end of games as well. So I think the talent is still there. I do have question marks. Yeah, with the coaching situation in Toronto, it sounded like they were interviewing a bunch of different options, and then they landed at Mike Miller, who I think was the quarterback coach. And Mike Miller has gone out and really backed Chad Kelly to come back and says that he can regain his form from his MOP season. I'm not so sure. What are your expectations for Chad Kelly this year? I don't know what to expect at all.
I wonder how much Chad Kelly's also going to be looking over his shoulder, because you got a Nick Arbuckle in there that actually overall, all things considered, had a really good season for the Toronto Argonauts last year.
Yeah.
He was not the reason why the Toronto Argonauts were what they were last year, essentially. If I was Chad Kelly, I mean, you don't have a lot of options for throwing the ball to, really. I mean, Jake Herslow had a breakout season. I mean, that's a positive.
I'm so excited to see him again.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's one piece of Toronto that I want to see. I mean, DeMonte Coxey is good. He always is. I mean, there's nothing wrong with him. You know, I don't know. There's not a lot that I can say that I'm really excited about the Toronto Argonauts and Chad Kelly. I mean, yeah, Chad Kelly has been, like I said, he's been sitting for us the whole season, essentially. So he's got to get that chemistry back with his receivers and back with his running backs. And again, most importantly, also back with his offensive line. It's a tough thing to bottle chemistry and just open it whenever you need it. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of Chad Kelly. He's got the swag to do it, obviously. But is he going to? I don't know. I consider him a good quarterback in this league. I think he's probably the number 5 rated quarterback on my list when I did the list, kind of, and when I was thinking of it. I think he's a very good quarterback. But is he the best quarterback in this league? He has moments where, teams have exposed him for a lot of interceptions. And you know what? He's been sitting for a while. The league changes when you sit. So I don't know. You know what? He might be the all-star MOP, or he might be one of those that you all of a sudden see Nick Arbuckle taking over for. So who knows?
I have no idea where to rank him in my quarterback rankings. I have no idea what my expectations are for him, because he could very well come out and light it up, or he could struggle. And I feel bad for Nick Arbuckle that he's stuck back on the bench after the season that he had last year. And I think he was in the running for MOP, or could have been in the running if he hadn't gotten injured late in the season last year himself. So I think that is something where, if Kelly does struggle or isn't 100% from his injury, maybe we see more Arbuckle as the season goes along. But they are deciding to go with Kelly as a starter. And we'll see how that lines up. I disagree with you about the talent at wide receiver. I think this team is stacked at receiver, and I'm very excited to see all 5 of these guys hopefully play quite a bit together. DeMonte Coxie has always been the number 1 guy there. They got Mekhi Polk back from the NFL late in the season last year. He made an impact. Jake Herslow was a monster that jumped onto the scene and was the fantasy superstar last year. And Kevin Meitel had himself an amazing, I think, 1,000-yard plus season of his own. And David Unger has been very versatile and serviceable there. So I think that's a pretty solid 5 that they have at the receiving core. Maybe they don't have the depth that they would have had in the past, but it's the next man up. I mean, look what Jake Herslow did there as well. Running back was very much a surprise for me either yesterday or today when, I probably pegged Spencer Brown as, like, when talking about fantasy, that underrated breakout player for fantasy this year at the running back position. After he came on strong late in the season, the Argos released him. I don't know who their running back is going to be this season. We'll have to keep watching throughout training camp. The only veteran I see on the list is Peyton Logan, who had quite a struggle to really work his way into the lineup much in Winnipeg last year. So, and was more so used as a return man in that fashion. So I think that's the biggest question mark to me is the running back position for the Argos. Defensive side of the ball, I think they've lost quite a bit as well. I know they've replaced some of it, and they still do have a lot of good talent there. Yes, they lost Winton McManus, but they replaced him with Cam Judge, who they got over from, I think they got him in a trade with Calgary, did they not? No?
Oh, no, you're right, because Cam Judge went, yeah, okay, yep, no, Cam Judge was a Calgary Stampeder, he got traded to Toronto.
Oh, that was the year before. He ended up playing with Toronto last year, so they still have Cam Judge amongst the linebackers there. They've got guys on the defensive backfield, Deshaun Amos amongst them, Tavares McFadden, Benji Franklin, right? Like they've got a pretty strong defensive backfield. And Darius Pickett in the linebacker core was a big free agent addition for them as well. So I think they've got a pretty deep team still on defense as well. It's just, I think the schedule is going to be the biggest factor for this team this year, where it's tough to go out and win that many games on the road early season, and that could put them behind the 8 ball where it's hard to catch up down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I can't see. Again, you're on the road so much at the beginning, it's just going to kill you. Their defense is good. You said Darius Pickett, I think, is one of those that's a real utility knife. I mean, if he has to play linebacker, he can. If he has to go to the defensive back, he can do it. So, like I said, that's a good piece for the Argonauts. Cam Judge, I mean, he was great in Saskatchewan. He's great in Toronto. He's been good in Toronto. He's pretty much the main reason why they could even consider letting a Winton McManus walk, just because of his talent. So you know what? Hey, I like that one too. Overall, Toronto's defense will be good. I think, like I said, it's going to be it's the grind. That's the biggest problem with the Argonauts. What they're going to have for right off the bat is how many games can you win? Go into Saskatchewan and call yourself the home team. Guess how that's going to work for you for the most part. And then, by the way, next week, go do it in Winnipeg. Like, I'm sorry, but that still just absolutely floors me that they think that's an advantage. So, you know what? The schedule just absolutely hurts them. And you can even see when they were trying to sign players and everything this offseason, I think there was probably a thing for a lot of players saying, we don't want to go through this. And can you blame them?
Yeah, because it took them a while to nail down the head coaching situation as well, right? Where I can't remember the timelines. Was Miller officially promoted before free agency opened or afterwards?
Wasn't it the day of free agency? I have to go take a look at that, but I thought it was it was right around there. Mike Miller became the head coach, and I think they interviewed a bunch of people for it. And there was a lot of declines as far as I remember.
We're way off on the timelines. December 2nd, 2025. So it was way before free agency that they did name Mike Miller the new head coach. I don't know why I thought that was after free agency, but I did think about that last year when the schedule situation was announced. Of like, if I have my option of going to a 5-win Toronto Argonauts team versus that, in a new coaching situation versus going somewhere else that might pay me similar money and I don't have to play on the road the entire season, I'd probably go somewhere else, to be honest.
Yeah. Although there is Looney Hot Dog Night. So, I mean, if you get hungry during the game.
But there you're settled. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You really love this Looney Hot Dog Night, hey?
I just love the idea of it. Honestly, I want to see how many Argonaut fans just show up for Looney Hot Dog Night. I want to see that place packed for a Looney Hot Dog Night. They also have a WWE night, which is cool. I mean, if you're a big wrestling fan, why not? That'd be pretty sweet to see Argonauts, and I don't know if they're allowed to go and suplex players on the line, but I mean, that one night only, they might be allowed to. So you got to go and find out if they do it. So make sure you grab your tickets at argos.com.
What's your threshold on Looney Hot Dog Night? How many dogs you getting?
If it was me, probably about 4, I probably would get down. But and I can't eat like I used to. Otherwise, probably be a few more. I would say probably, let's say there'll be the over-under, let's say, is at probably 20,000 eaten in the whole stadium.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I think I'd probably go like 1 or 2. I'm
well,
not saying hot dog.
Toronto Blue Jays, I think, have the Major League Baseball record right now for most hot dogs consumed in a Looney Hot Dog Night. I think that Toronto fans like the Looney Hot Dogs.
Okay, well, there we go. Stadium's going to be packed. Look forward to it. Talking about fantasy side here for Argos players, Chad Kelly's an interesting one from a drafting perspective of it depends on your league makeup, right? To where if you're in like a 6-player or a 6-team league and you're drafting one quarterback, I'm a little bit more nervous to draft Chad Kelly. If you're in a league where you have the ability to draft 2 quarterbacks, I'm probably trying to pair him with a more steady presence where, if it works out, he's your league winner. But if it doesn't work out due to the unknowns, then you need somebody who you can put in there as a serviceable replacement. I would not pair Nick or I would not pair Chad Kelly together with Drew Brown if those options presented to me, because I would not have confidence in those early weeks necessarily amongst them. Running back situation, maybe there's more clarity in the weeks to come of who's really going to take the starting job, and you could probably get that person late in drafts or cheap in weekly fantasy as a result. And then amongst the receivers in Toronto, we didn't mention among the departures, Deshaun Brissett, I think, is going over to, where did he go? Did he go to Calgary? Where's Deshaun Brissett at these days? He is with the Calgary Stampeders. I think that's where he actually began. And Tavares Daniels, a mainstay of this offense, has retired now. So, like I said, it's those 4 guys before. Jake Herslow is the number one you have to consider amongst the fantasy options for this team. I mean, he played 12 games last year and really only like half of them as a starter, and he finished the year with 756 yards and 9 touchdowns. I see no reason he slows down there. DeMonte Coxey has kind of been always he's been Chad Kelly's favorite during the Kelly's MOP season. So if Kelly's at the helm here, I think DeMonte Coxey is probably your top bet amongst the Argo receivers. And I mean, if you need that national spot, Kevin Maitel, I need to stand corrected. I said 1,000-yard season. He had 886 on the year. So not as strong as I thought. Early season, he got a lot of targets. He actually got a lot here and there. It just didn't turn to a lot of yards for him. And then Makai Polk, hit and miss coming back from the NFL. But once again, they had a lot of quarterback turnover down the stretch after Nick Arbuckle got injured last season. So I think some of that is a byproduct. So I would be comfortable taking any of those 4 guys in a fantasy draft, to be honest, and stacking them on my team.
Yeah, I mean, any of the receivers are okay. I think you just got to pick one. I think if you're really wanting to go in Toronto's way, the only thing I could see, though, is I don't know if I trust Chad Kelly anymore. I mean, last year, that's essentially what killed me in my fantasy draft, was me kind of being cautious or overthinking that Chad Kelly's coming back a little bit earlier than he did, and he never did. Finally, I made a trade to get rid of him because
stupidest trade in history.
That was the dumbest trade I've ever seen. Sorry, Trey. But it was a bad trade for Trey. I mean, like, what were you doing? I mean, I know you don't like Nathan Rourke, but why?
That trade almost tore the fantasy league and the entire podcast apart.
Yep, pretty much ended everything. But, it was worth it for me. Anyways, no, honestly, here's my strategy when I go and I draft a quarterback. If I get two quarterbacks, I try to take one from the West, one from the East. Try to get the two best ones, and that way there you try to get your two best from each of the divisions. Like I said, Chad Kelly, if you have to take him, make sure you got Nathan Rourke or somebody really solid in the East or in the West. Because, I don't think you can rely on Chad Kelly right now being that all-star number one bona fide MOP quarterback yet. Halfway through the season, never know. Maybe he will gel back into that guy. I don't know if he's going to be there in game one. So actually I'll be watching some of the preseason games just to see what exactly he kind of looks like, because I'm kind of interested myself. Running back, I guess we'll find out who it is. You're right. Ain't going to be Spencer Brown, but
nope.
I don't know who it's going to be. So, hey, do they still have McMahon? No, I don't think they do.
No, he's off to Calgary.
Yeah. So, they'll find somebody eventually, I guess.
Could I counter argue one thing you said there about pairing Chad Kelly with a guy like Nathan Rourke? Well, Rourke's going to be going in the first round of every fantasy draft this year. And if you're somebody who gets Nathan Rourke, why are you wasting a draft pick on Chad Kelly, right? Like, you should be stacking the rest of your roster if you're going with Nathan Rourke at other positions. And if you want to pick a backup quarterback later in the draft for his bye weeks and injury concerns, then I think you're starting to look at some of the more mainstay quarterbacks. Like, I'd throw a Trevor Harris or a Cody Fajardo that are more stable, maybe not going to be massive numbers every week, but guys you can probably get cheaper later in drafts.
But what'll counter you is Chad Kelly going to go real high in the draft? Do you think he's going to go high?
I think you might have people that want to take the shot on 2023 Chad Kelly, right? And the name associated with that. I don't know.
Yeah, and see, my way of looking at it is if it goes the way it really should, I get Nathan Rourke number one as my draft pick, and then I go and I pick up receivers that can amplify Nathan Rourke, or receivers or running backs that can really go and amp my game up, because that's what I want to do. And then, you know what? The bye week that I have to throw in Chad Kelly, fine. You never know. Maybe he'll strike lightning. It's kind of a flyer pick, and it sounds weird, but I take him like in a 7th or an 8th round pick or something low, because hopefully he's still there. If he isn't, well, then whatever. Then you go with a Trevor Harris or a Cody Fajardo or somebody like that that's maybe not going to get the most exposure.
Yeah, for sure. I do agree with you that, like, if he's available late in the draft, I'd take him in that regard. If you already have a strong quarterback, I wouldn't go like one quarterback in the first round, a couple rounds later, go Chad Kelly type of situation, right? I would reserve him for later, or do vice versa and do Chad Kelly earlier if you truly believe in him, and then pick a mainstay a little bit later on.
If you can get the mainstay is the big problem, because if you got two quarterback drafts, usually people try to take their quarterbacks pretty early in drafts. That's why I'm really intrigued to know where Chad Kelly's going to fit in a draft. I could see somebody like, if you're doing like our own personal draft, I could see a Trey going after Chad Kelly real early.
100%.
And I'm just going to sit there and say, peace out. I'm going for somebody else. But that being said, you never know. It could be a wild card, and he might just all of a sudden go and say, I don't want him. I want to go and see if I can pick him up, and it'll just be a game of chicken on who picks up Chad Kelly the earliest. And that'll be interesting then. But I'm predicting in our draft, 2nd round, Chad Kelly's gone.
With this podcast has gone on so long now that my headphones are dying. So tell us why Toronto is going to finish over or under 7.5 wins while I quickly change my headphones.
That's fine. Under 7 wins, not a chance they can get more. I'm sorry, and again, Toronto fans, don't take me as I don't like your team. I like the Argonauts, but this year, new coach, they got to adapt to a whole new system. It's a quarterback that's coming in that's been off for a whole year. It's a lot of things that are going completely wrong for the Toronto Argonauts. And by the way, the World Cup thing is going to completely mess with anything for momentum that Toronto has going into the season. I'll be honest, I can see this being a 2-win, 3-win season. I'm sorry, but it's not looking good for the Argonauts this season. And you know what? If they get an 11-7 season and prove me wrong, I'll be the first guy to go and applaud them and wear my Argonauts hat proudly in a playoff game. But you know what? I'm sorry. I can't see it. I cannot see a 7-win team coming out of the Toronto Argonauts. To me, again, 3, 4, maybe 5 wins. 5 wins is not a good season either, but got to count the games, and I just don't see enough in Toronto for them to win, enough.
Yeah, I'm going under as well for all the same reasons that you just talked about. I do think this is going to be the last place team in the East Division, and so they're going to finish with less than 7 wins. Passing yards, Chad Kelly over under 3850.5. So he is the lowest of the ones in the East Division. Depends, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of a wild card. Honestly, this is one that I'm probably just not picking against at all, just because it's an unknown. Like if he comes back strong, he's crushing that number. Absolutely. If he struggles or if any injury lingers, then he's just not going to crush it. So I think my best betting advice there is just stay away from this prop entirely.
Yeah, I would be the same way exactly. If somebody put a gun to my head and made me choose, I would say just because I don't like again, I like his receivers. You're right, actually, more than I'm thinking about it, Ryan. His receivers are good. His receivers can do it for him. And 3,800 isn't a pile to get, but if they have trouble, are they going to go back to Nick Arbuckle? I mean, there's a possibility of that. So to me, I would say under if I was forced to, but you're right. In our case, just don't take the bet.
Yeah. Running backs, there's no props because we don't even know who the running back is. 2 wide receiver props that FanDuel has DeMonte Coxey 950.5 and Makai Polk 1075.5. I'm much more on the Coxey train here of giving him over 950 because he's Chad Kelly's favorite receiver, in my opinion. Like, they have a massive connection there. Polk 1075 is one where I might go a little bit under. I feel like there were several games late in the season last year, and again, quarterback situation played into it as well, where he got the targets, but they just weren't landing with him for one reason or another, and he had a couple of dud games down the stretch. So I think spreading the ball around amongst everybody, I could see him coming close and maybe over that 1,000-yard mark, but I would lean under, but again, probably wouldn't bet that one. I would be more confident betting the Coxey over 950. What about you?
Yeah, I think I'd be. I like the Coxey over 1,000. I could see him easily making that. Makai Polk is an interesting one. Sometimes he has some great games, and again, sometimes he just disappears as well. But more consistent lately. So I would say probably both got a good case for over. But again, it just depends on what's going to happen during games when you're away all the time. And I mean, that's a tough factor and to factor in anything with the Toronto Argonauts. Chad Kelly, again, what Chad Kelly are we getting? We're getting the 2023 Chad Kelly? Are we going to get the missed the season Chad Kelly because it looks like he missed the season? I don't know. It's so tough to tell. And again, if you don't know your quarterback, you don't know what your variables on your receivers are going to do. So the guy in theory both of them should get over 1,000 yards. But again, depends on the quarterback.
Now, to his credit, Polk back in 2024, his last full season in Toronto before he went to the NFL, did surpass 100 yards in 5 of his last 7 games of the season. But you also have guys like Herslow and Mytel that are going to take some of the yardage away there. So I see this always being a team that's going to spread the ball around pretty evenly in that regard. And finally, for the props for Toronto, the Grey Cup odds are plus 1,100, which I believe is second worst in the CFL. Do you want to guess who the lower one is?
Jeez. The Edmonton Elks?
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't a hard guessing game, just based on people don't believe in the Elks. But I'm not betting on the Argos to win the Cup this year.
No, not a chance. I mean, you know what? If you want to give a free 1,100 plus 1,100 donation of some sort, I guess, to whatever betting company you want to go with, go ahead. But you ain't going to see me bidding on that one.
All right, quick wrap up here of the East Division. Give us your East Division rankings and your East Division playoff picture.
Okay, so first things first, I think it's pretty obvious. I think still in the East Division, the Montreal Alouettes are the team to beat. Davis Alexander just looks really good. If he's healthy, the Montreal Alouettes are going to be that team that will do something in the East again and could be the East representative, I think, in the Grey Cup this year, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is going to be a different one. I'm breathing that, you know what? I've been sucking in that red Kool-Aid a little too much again. I'm sorry, Ryan, and it sucks. Last year, I don't think I had Ottawa very high, and that was because I was just, kind of got off the red Kool-Aid. I'm back on the red Kool-Aid. I'm going to put them as a home playoff team. They're going to be second in the East. And Hamilton, you know what? They're going to give a good battle. And, boy, they're going to be in a tough spot to get across. There's going to be crossover teams potentially. But I'm not going to go with that right now. I think Hamilton will get third and still be in the East Division semifinal, playing Ottawa. Toronto, well, thanks for coming out. Sorry, not looking pretty. They might get to host a playoff game in Saskatchewan if they win. Sorry, Toronto. I'm so sorry in advance.
They're going to come out in like 18. They're going to come out with an 18-0 season.
They do. I will eat my Toronto Argonauts hat. Actually, my Hamilton Tiger Cat hat. I'm sure Argonaut fans would love to see me do that.
Yes. Okay. Book it for the podcast episode in November.
Yep. So, anyways, what I'm going to go with is Ottawa hosting the Hamilton Tiger Cats this year in the East Semi. I'm going to go with the Ottawa Redblacks edging that one out. You know what? There's something about with Dinwiddie. He knows how to get a team to work when it really matters. And if they're in the playoffs, it matters. So Ottawa makes it into there. They play the Montreal Alouettes. The Alouettes are still a pretty strong team. And I think that they are the East Division champions for 2026. And I think that they will win the East final against the Ottawa Redblacks.
All right. I've got Montreal finishing first in the East Division by a couple of wins there. I have Hamilton and Ottawa kind of hovering close to each other in win totals. I did put, if you're tracking the over-unders there, I do have Hamilton higher, but I could also see it being flipped. So give me Hamilton in second in the East, Ottawa in third at roughly like a 7 or 8 win season. And then Toronto finishing last under 7 wins in the division. I'll save any crossover talk maybe for next week, because I think, if I'm thinking Ottawa's got a 7 or 8 win season, well, there is potential maybe for a crossover there. The last season of the crossover, maybe it will happen. Maybe this is the year that the crossover happens with the new playoff format coming the year after. But I do have Hamilton hosting Ottawa, and I do think the Ticats win that one at home. And then I do have Montreal beating Hamilton in the East final once again to go off to the Grey Cup there in a matchup that we've seen quite often, it seems, as of late between those two teams in the playoffs in the last couple of years.
Yep. No, I can't argue with that one either. I mean, Ottawa and Hamilton, you could flip one way or the other, really. I think it could be either way. But like I said, something about Dinwiddie, man. But that being said, Drew Brown, you better prove it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's it for our Marathon East Division preview. We're clocking in at 2 hours, and next week we get to hopefully do it again, and we have one extra team to talk about. So maybe we'll try to tighten things up a little bit next week. But this is only the second time in the last couple of months we've gotten a chance to chat about Canadian football, and we're talking about a lot of the transactions and news from the offseason that we didn't ever chat about really as we've gone through this, and we have the fantasy picks and the betting picks in there for a little tidbit of info for everybody as we gear towards the CFL season coming up. We're still trying to work through scheduling issues amongst us and stuff, so hopefully we get into a more steady rotation of episodes of this show coming out. Stay tuned for that, and hopefully we will be back next week again with our West preview, and then still trying to nail down a date, but we're only 2 weeks away from the season, so if the CFL finally unlocks CFL fantasy, we will be hopefully scheduling our draft sometime in the next couple weeks as well, which we will record also as we do every year. In the meantime, you can follow us on socials at CF Countdown Pod on X, Blue Sky, or Facebook. You can check out all the other great shows from around the CF Pod Network as well at CF Pod Network on Twitter, and Alternative Network Football Network at the official AFN on Twitter or alternativefootballnetwork.com. Adam, what do you got going on? Where can people find it?
It's all seating all the time for me right now, so you can find me in a tractor probably on X at Adam Stewart 1, or you can go better yet, probably Instagram. I usually make some daily stories on there. You can go and see what I've got going on there. Farmer_in_Sask. That's probably the best one to see me doing anything right at the moment. But yeah, it's seating time for me, so it's a busy time. And by the way, my team above me over on my head here, 8 more wins. That's all I need. And unfortunately, we won't get to see Ryan's team in the dance this year.
Nope. I hate hockey.
I thought you would have switched and went to the Montreal Canadiens or something.
I would never do that. You would have to pin me down and force me to.
Yeah.
I would rather eat your Hamilton Tiger Cats hat.
Nobody wants to eat that Hamilton Tiger Cats hat.
No, yeah, my team's out of the playoffs. That happened. The run of dominance. The hockey state of Florida is reeling after not making it to the finals for the first time in 5 years.
It's utterly amazing. And Corey Perry didn't make the finals as well.
Yeah, something's broken there some way or another along the way. But at least, we're not as miserable as the province, as the city of Vancouver. I was going to say province, but the city of Vancouver.
I feel so that, you know what? I don't know which one I feel worse for, the Toronto Argonauts fans or the Vancouver Canuck fans. That had to have hurt the worst. And then not only that, going and doing the second draft for the second overall pick and losing that one too.
And the Leafs winning the draft lottery is just pain for everybody.
That's just suffering. That's for everybody.
Really, it really, lends itself to my prior statement of I hate hockey. No, I do still love hockey, of course. But...
All I know is all I'm hoping for right now is somehow the Montreal Canadiens make it into the Stanley Cup final, and they got to play the Colorado Avalanche, and we wear the Nordiques jersey the whole time.
I'm rooting for Buffalo. How's Buffalo doing?
They lost tonight 6-3.
Well, not great. Not great. Anyways, okay, I'm tired. Let's go to bed and wrap the show up. You can find me on X at CooperTrooper42. Check out the Discord link in the episode description. Free to join us over there to come chat with us in between episodes. Let us know your betting picks amongst the ones we chatted about today. Let us know your fantasy thoughts as well, or thoughts on these teams in general. And whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do all the fun things like comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. On behalf of Adam, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.